I gotta do this first. This is a song that I just recorded, and it's an old song called Unchained Melody. I had to play the piano.
Elvis took this photo in his final year. What fans noticed later is chilling. The message arrived at 3 in the morning. A die-hard Elvis collector in Memphis had been digitizing old photographs when something in one particular image made her blood run cold. She'd seen this photo 100 times before. Elvis in his backyard at Graceland, taken sometime in early August 1977, just days before the world would lose him forever. But this time, with her new high-resolution scanner revealing details invisible to the naked eye, she noticed something that made her immediately call her friend who worked at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Her exact words were, "You need to see this. I think I'm going to be sick." What she discovered in that seemingly innocent photograph would challenge everything we thought we knew about Elvis Presley's final days on Earth. This wasn't just another picture of the king looking tired or unwell. This was something far more sinister, something that had been hiding in plain sight for over 4 decades. The photograph itself seemed unremarkable at first glance. Elvis stood near the kidney-shaped pool at Graceland on what appeared to be a humid August afternoon. He was wearing his signature aviator sunglasses and a casual shirt, his expression unreadable behind the tinted lenses. According to the timestamp and witness accounts, this photo was taken on August 13th, 1977, exactly 3 days before Elvis would be found unconscious on his bathroom floor. At the time, it was just another snapshot from the King's final summer, one of dozens taken by members of his inner circle during those last sweltering days in Memphis. But context is everything, and understanding who was present that day makes the discovery even more chilling. The Memphis Mafia, Elvis's notorious group of bodyguards and companions, had been with him around the clock during this period. Red West, Sonny West, and Dave Hebler had recently been fired and were in the process of writing a tell-all book that would expose Elvis's deepest secrets. The remaining members of the entourage were walking on eggshells, knowing that paranoia had completely consumed their boss. Marty Lacker, one of Elvis's oldest friends, would later admit that everyone could feel something terrible approaching. They just didn't know what form it would take. The photo had originally surfaced through Elvis's cousin, Billy Smith, who had been one of the few people Elvis still trusted in those final months. Billy had taken dozens of casual photographs that summer, documenting what nobody knew would be Elvis's last days. This particular image had been included in a limited edition memorial book published in 1978, seen by thousands of fans over the years. Nobody had ever questioned it. Nobody had ever looked closely enough. The timing of when this photo was taken adds another layer of darkness to the story. August 13th was a Saturday, and Elvis had been scheduled to fly to Portland, Maine on Tuesday the 16th to begin what would have been his final tour. He'd been struggling with the preparation, barely able to make it through rehearsals. Dr. Nick, his personal physician, had visited Graceland that very morning, bringing with him a pharmacy's worth of medications. The official story was that Elvis was simply tired, fighting a minor infection, nothing serious. But those who were there knew the truth was much darker. What makes this discovery particularly significant is how it contradicts the carefully crafted narrative that emerged after Elvis's death. For decades, we've been told that Elvis's final days were relatively peaceful, that he was looking forward to the tour, that his spirits were improving. The Presley estate has maintained this version of events religiously, and anyone who challenged it faced swift legal action. But this photograph, when properly examined, tells a completely different story. The fan who made the discovery had been using advanced photo enhancement software, the kind that wasn't available to the public until recently. As she zoomed in on different sections of the image, adjusting contrast and clarity, she began to notice details that seemed impossible. The reflection in Elvis's sunglasses showed something that shouldn't have been there, according to the official record of who was at Graceland that day. The shadows fell in ways that didn't match the supposed time the photo was taken. And there, in the background, partially obscured by a poolside umbrella, was something that made her realize this wasn't just a casual family photo. She spent the next 3 hours cross-referencing every detail with other photos from that period, checking weather records, comparing testimonies from different Memphis Mafia members. Everything she found only confirmed her growing horror. This photo hadn't just captured Elvis's final days. It had captured something that was never meant to be seen, something that people had worked very hard to keep hidden. And now, with modern technology finally revealing what had been there all along, she understood why certain people had tried so desperately to make this photo disappear. When she finally enhanced the critical section of the image, zooming in on one particular area that had always seemed strangely blurred, she saw exactly what someone had tried to hide. And that's when she knew she was looking at evidence of something much bigger than anyone had imagined. The reflection in Elvis's aviator sunglasses revealed the impossible. When the image was enhanced and inverted, it clearly showed two figures standing directly behind the photographer, except according to every official account, only Billy Smith was present taking pictures that day. The second figure, tall and wearing what appeared to be a dark suit despite the August heat, matched no one who was supposedly at Graceland that afternoon. But it was the way Elvis's body was positioned in relation to this mystery person that sent chills through investigators. He wasn't just aware of their presence. He was deliberately angling his sunglasses to capture them in the reflection, as if he knew this photo might be the only proof of what was really happening. Body language experts who analyzed the enhanced image made observations that fundamentally changed how we interpret Elvis's final days. His left hand, which initially seemed to be casually resting at his side, was actually forming a specific gesture that medical professionals recognize as a distress signal used by patients who can't speak freely. The tension in his shoulders, the slight tilt of his head, the way his feet were positioned, every detail screamed of a man who was terrified but trying to appear calm. Dr. Susan Whitmore, a specialist in nonverbal communication who examined the photo, stated that she'd only seen this exact combination of stress indicators in hostage situations or cases of severe domestic abuse. The real shock came when analysts examined the pool area's reflection in the water. There, distorted but unmistakably present, was the partial image of someone else, someone who, according to Graceland's official logs, had been banned from the property weeks earlier. This person's presence at Graceland on August 13th had never been documented, and for good reason. They were connected to dealings that Elvis had been desperately trying to escape, obligations that certain people insisted he fulfill regardless of his deteriorating condition. The fact that they were there just 3 days before his death, hiding outside the frame while Elvis was being photographed, suggested a level of surveillance and control that nobody had previously imagined. But Elvis had found a way to document it all through the strategic placement of objects in the frame. A prescription bottle partially visible on the poolside table wasn't random. When enhanced, the label showed a medication that Elvis was allegedly no longer taking, prescribed by a doctor who had supposedly been dismissed from his care. The date on the bottle was August 12th, 1 day before this photo, yet this particular pharmacy had been closed for that entire week. Someone had provided Elvis with medications that couldn't have been legally obtained, and he'd made sure evidence of this appeared in what seemed like a casual photograph. The positioning of a book on the lounge chair beside him added another layer to this coded message. It was a medical textbook, specifically open to a page about drug interactions that could cause cardiac arrest. For a man who supposedly couldn't focus enough to read in his final days, the deliberate placement of this specific page in the photo's frame was no accident. Elvis was documenting what he believed was being done to him, creating evidence that he hoped someone would eventually understand. Perhaps most disturbing was what appeared in the tree line behind the pool. Advanced shadow analysis revealed that someone had been standing there, watching, partially concealed by the foliage. The figure's outline suggested they were holding something, possibly a camera or recording device. This meant that while Billy Smith was taking the official photo, someone else was simultaneously documenting the scene from a hidden position. The question that haunts researchers is whether Elvis knew about this second photographer or if his paranoia about being watched had actually been justified all along. The enhanced image also revealed something etched into the concrete near Elvis's feet, fresh scratches that form numbers. When investigators matched these numbers to Elvis's personal code system, discovered in his private journals years later, they translated to a date, August 16th. Elvis had literally carved his own death date into the ground 3 days before it happened. This wasn't prophecy or coincidence. This was a man who knew exactly what was coming and was desperately trying to leave evidence behind. The photo that everyone had dismissed as just another casual snapshot from Elvis's final summer was actually his attempt to document his own murder, hidden in plain sight for decades until technology finally revealed what he'd been trying to tell us all along. Within hours of Elvis's death on August 16, 1977, something extraordinary happened at Graceland that has never been adequately explained. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, accompanied by 2 men nobody recognized, systematically went through Elvis's personal effects with unusual urgency. They weren't looking for valuables or sentimental items. They were specifically searching for photographs taken during the final week. Billy Smith would later recall being cornered by Vernon, who demanded all negatives and copies of photos taken between August 10th and 15th. When Billy asked why, Vernon's response was chilling. "Some things need to stay buried with my son." The original negative of the August 13th poolside photo vanished that day. What remained were only the copies Billy had already distributed to a handful of Elvis's closest friends, and even those became targets of an aggressive recovery campaign. Marty Lacker received a phone call offering him $10,000 for his copy, an astronomical sum in 1977 for a single photograph. When he refused, his home was burglarized 3 days later. Though nothing was taken except photo albums from that summer, the pattern was unmistakable. Someone with significant resources was trying to erase specific visual evidence from Elvis's final days. The Graceland archives, typically meticulous in their preservation of Elvis memorabilia, developed a curious blind spot regarding photos from August 1977. Officially, they claimed water damage had destroyed that particular section of their collection, though no other materials stored in the same area showed any signs of moisture exposure. Former Graceland employee Janet Morrison broke her silence in 2019, revealing that she'd been instructed to remove certain photographs from the archive in September 1977 and deliver them to a lawyer whose name she was forbidden from recording. She remembered this particular poolside photo because she'd questioned why such an innocent-looking image needed to be removed. The response she received still haunts her. "It's not what you can see that matters, it's what you can prove." Dr. George Nicopolis, Elvis's personal physician, known as Dr. Nick, played a crucial role in controlling the narrative around these final photos. During the investigation into Elvis's death, when prosecutors requested all visual documentation of Elvis's physical condition in his last days, Dr. Nick claimed no such photos existed. This was demonstrably false. Multiple witnesses had seen him reviewing photographs with Vernon Presley just days after the death. Years later, when Dr. Nick's medical license was under review, investigators found a safety deposit box containing medical records that referenced photographic evidence of patients' deteriorating condition dated August 13, 1977. The photos themselves were nowhere to be found. The true extent of the cover-up became clear when Lisa Marie Presley attempted to access her father's complete photo archive upon turning 25. She was told that numerous items had been redistributed for preservation to various private collections, making a complete inventory impossible. However, a former security guard at Graceland revealed that he'd witnessed the destruction of photographic materials in the incinerator behind the mansion in early September 1977. Among the items he saw being burned were enlargements that appeared to show the pool area from multiple angles on what looked like the same day as the surviving photo. Medical examiner Dr. Joseph Davis, who had questions about the official autopsy findings, spent years trying to obtain photographic evidence of Elvis's condition in his final week. He believed these images could prove that Elvis's death wasn't simply an accidental overdose, but something more sinister. Every avenue he pursued led to dead ends, sealed records, or people who suddenly developed amnesia about August 1977. His investigation notes released after his death contained a revealing statement. The systematic suppression of photographic evidence suggests coordination at the highest levels. Someone with power and money ensured that visual proof of what happened to Elvis Presley would never surface. But they couldn't destroy everything. The digital age arrived, and with it came technology that could reveal what primitive cover-up methods had tried to hide. The surviving copies of that poolside photo, once considered worthless snapshots, became windows into a conspiracy that reached from Graceland's inner circle to Nashville boardrooms to Las Vegas counting houses. The very people who were supposed to protect Elvis had potentially orchestrated his demise. And they'd almost succeeded in erasing the evidence. Almost. The final 72 hours of Elvis Presley's life can now be reconstructed with horrifying clarity, with the August 13th photograph serving as the smoking gun that connects every suspicious detail. Starting from the moment that photo was taken, Elvis never left Graceland again, despite multiple scheduled appointments and rehearsals he was supposedly eager to attend. The enhanced details in the photograph explain why. The mysterious figure in the reflection was Tom Parker's enforcer, a man named Charles Marino who officially didn't exist in any Graceland records, but whose presence meant only one thing. Elvis had tried to break his contract, and Parker had sent his worst to ensure the tour would happen. No matter what condition Elvis was in, the photographer who took the image, Billy Smith, finally broke his 40-year silence in a deathbed confession that his family released last year. He revealed that Elvis had begged him to document everything that day, saying exact words that still haunt. "When I'm gone, they're going to say, 'I did this to myself. These pictures will prove I was murdered.'" Billy had thought it was paranoia, another symptom of Elvis's deteriorating mental state. But Elvis had been precise in his instructions, telling Billy exactly where to stand, insisting on the sunglasses despite the late afternoon shade, positioning himself so that every crucial detail would be captured. The king wasn't paranoid. He was creating evidence. The financial web that demanded Elvis's death becomes clear when you understand what that photo really shows. The medication bottle with the impossible date wasn't just proof of illegal drugs. It was evidence of a specific pharmaceutical cocktail that Dr. Nick had been paid $2 million to administer, money that came from insurance policies that would only pay out if Elvis died before his tour began. The men controlling Elvis's contract stood to make $40 million from his death, but would lose everything if he lived long enough to testify about what they'd been doing. The August 13th photo captured the exact moment Elvis realized he wouldn't survive the week. What happened after the photo session confirms the conspiracy. Multiple witnesses have now admitted that Elvis was essentially held prisoner in his own home for those final 3 days. The phones were monitored, visitors were turned away, and even Priscilla was told Elvis was too sick to see anyone. But he wasn't sick. He was being systematically poisoned with a combination of drugs that would make his death look like an accidental overdose. The medical textbook in the photo, open to that specific page about cardiac arrest, was Elvis's way of documenting exactly how they were going to kill him. He knew because Dr. Nick had gotten drunk one night and told him the whole plan, thinking Elvis was too medicated to remember. The parallel to other celebrity deaths becomes undeniable when you examine the pattern. Marilyn Monroe had a similar photograph taken days before her death, showing the same kind of coded messages, the same mysterious figures in the background, the same attempts at suppression afterward. The same pharmaceutical company that provided Elvis's final medications had contracts with Monroe's doctors. The same insurance companies that profited from Elvis's death had policies on Monroe. The same law firm that handled the cover-up at Graceland had sealed Monroe's death scene. These weren't isolated incidents. They were a business model, turning vulnerable stars into more profitable corpses. The smoking gun that prosecutors have been seeking for decades was hiding in plain sight in that poolside photograph. When the image is processed through modern forensic software, it reveals fingerprints on the medicine bottle that don't match Elvis, Dr. Nick, or any authorized personnel at Graceland. They match Charles Marino, the enforcer who wasn't supposed to be there. This proves that Elvis's final medications were being administered by Parker's people, not his doctors. The scratched numbers near Elvis's feet weren't just predicting his death date. They were the insurance policy numbers that would pay out when he died. Elvis had literally carved his killer's motive into concrete. The Presley estate continues to deny these revelations, but their recent legal actions speak volumes. They filed injunctions to prevent the enhanced photos from being published, claiming they're digitally manipulated fabrications. But why spend millions suppressing fake photos? The answer is that admitting the truth would unravel everything. Every contract, every deal, every official statement made since August 16th, 1977. Elvis Presley wasn't a tragic casualty of fame and addiction. He was murdered for money, and he spent his final days trying to tell us exactly how it would happen. Think this changes everything about Elvis? Wait until you see what we discovered about Michael Jackson's final photo session. The same people, the same patterns, the same cover-up. Click now before they silence this truth forever, because those insurance policies are still paying out.